Mounting concerns about a contested election, a new sense of urgency on a second economic stimulus package, and love hate eight, courtesy of all of your listener suggestions. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Friday, September 25th. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Good morning, Carlo.
Happy Friday, Jill. Is this the first pod you're doing from your new home setup?
That would be correct. Yes.
How is it over there? How's your little makeshift studio? Looks good.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm on the same. I'm near my daughter's room. I used to be broadcasting from the basement. This time around, I am on like the same floor as where my bedroom is and where my daughter's bedroom is. So this is the big test to see if the house will wake up right now as I do this. So hopefully everybody stay sleeping, please. I'm going to be quiet.
We don't want to wake up. By the way, I don't. How is the little one doing? How's preschool? She started just recently, right?
She's okay. But an example of what we were talking about yesterday, she actually has a little bit of a runny nose. No fever, but a runny nose. And she has a cold or something. You know, she definitely, for the first time since the pandemic started, because she hasn't been around anybody, she actually has like the sniffles. So we picked her up yesterday from school and the teacher was like, she has some sniffles. I think you might need to keep her home. And I get it. So we're actually going to keep her home today. Because we want to set the precedent that, this is the right thing to do. And hopefully other parents will do the same. And I don't think that she's the only one, because the head of the school sent out this long email just saying, kids get sick. Here's the plan. Please leave your kid home. Apparently they're taking temperature. They take their temperature before they get out of the car every day, but also apparently like multiple times throughout the day. Alex had a runny nose. My daughter had a runny nose for basically all of winter last year. So I don't know what's going to happen. Like, are these kids just not going to go to school if they have sniffles?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I guess better to be safe than sorry right now.
Totally. I'm with you there.
Okay. Well, I may have just given you more than you asked for, but let's get to some news here. You're like, I am never going to ask how the little one is doing at the top of the podcast again. Okay. Senate Republicans moving to distance themselves from President Trump's refusal to commit to a peaceful transfer of power if he were to lose the election. The president continuing to sow doubt about the integrity of the election, saying he isn't sure that it could be honest. Democrats have started to talk seriously with state election officials and armies of lawyers about what might happen if the president were to refuse to relinquish power, or just this growing possibility that a contested election could end up in the courts.
I said this yesterday, I think, and I'll just repeat it, because it's the problem is not that Trump is going to like barricade himself in the Oval Office if he loses, right? That's not going to happen. The issue here is that if it's a close election that is dependent on how the mail-in ballots turn, that gets decided in the courts, and the courts happen to be stacked with Trump appointees, right? That's the thing. Like, I think people should really take a step back from this idea that there's actually going to be like some sort of coup, right? It's going to be about the courts. Lindsey Graham said this out loud yesterday. This like actually had my head spinning when I saw this clip. He told Fox News, quote, "As a Republican, I'm ready to accept any decision of the court as to the outcome of the election, and there is no alternative than a peaceful transfer of power." Well, like, see what he just do you see that? Right. He's ready to accept any decision of the court, right, not of the people. Right. They're changing the narrative in real time, making it seem inevitable that the election ends up in the Supreme Court. This is like a classic bait and switch. I'm not trying to freak. No, you know what? I am trying to freak people out. Like, I'm sick of saying that, because this is literally keeping me up at night. I just have this pit in my stomach about this. And again, like, this has nothing to do with if Trump wins the election, like, great, the system worked, right? If he wins the Electoral College, that's the way our system is built, and fantastic. Same with Biden. But this country, if there is a contested election that goes to the Supreme Court for the second time in a generation, I think people are really underestimating what is going to happen, just what that's going to mean. And it scares me. By the way, I did want to mention one thing. A couple of Fox News state polls really flashing red for the president. Biden leading in the battleground states of Nevada, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Ohio is the surprise there. Biden up 5, and the Fox News poll is quite good. So that was just interesting that I was surprised when I saw that yesterday.
I do not trust the polling. Not
Yeah,
that I
right,
don't
of
trust
course.
the process. I feel like there is a sliver of this population who may not want to admit that they're voting for Trump. But when they get to, privately on their ballot and
Well, it happened
whatever,
in
they
2016.
will.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. And I think even more so this time around. I wanted to mention Michael Beschloss, who's a president historian. He tweeted out this handwritten letter that George H.W. Bush, who had lost to Bill Clinton, that he wrote on the
Yeah.
day of their peaceful transfer of power back in 1993. And really quickly, I just want to read some of it because I think it
Please.
speaks to the Democratic tradition. And I got the chills from this. So he wrote, "Dear Bill, when I walked into this office just now, I felt the same sense of wonder and respect that I felt 4 years ago. I know you will feel that too. I wish you great happiness here. I never felt the loneliness that some presidents have described. There will be very tough times, made even more difficult by criticism that you may not think is fair. I'm not very good at giving out advice, but just don't let the critics discourage you or push you off course. You will be our president when you read this note. I wish you well. I wish your family well. Your success now is our country's success. I am rooting hard for you. Good luck, George." I'm personally
It,
getting like the chills, Carlo,
it
and
almost makes
tearing
me want
up
to
from this.
cry. Seriously, it
Yes.
really does. And I mean, how sad is that that we're in a place where you couldn't even imagine that happening now, right? By the way, his son, George W. Bush, wrote also a very nice, these letters sort of tend to go around social media around the time of an election, but they're especially relevant this year. So I'm surprised. I'm glad that you brought it up. But his George W. Bush wrote one just like that to Barack Obama in '08. Yeah, I don't know what to say. We're a long way from that.
And I think we're yearning for it. I mean, I had a very visceral reaction when I read that, and I don't think I've ever had that reaction before because I've read that note, like you said, in years past around election time. I feel like, they do pop up, um, and I wonder, can we get back to that place? I don't know. I hope so.
So do I.
On the note of politics, Speaker Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin have agreed to restart stalled negotiations over another economic rescue package. House Democrats are prepping a bill that would be narrower in scope than that $3.4 trillion package that they passed in May that died in the Senate. So this will be something along the lines of $2.4 trillion. The jump-started talks come as bars and restaurants around the country are failing. And the airline industry is facing the imminent threat of mass layoffs as their payroll protections expire on October 1st.
It feels like there's a little bit more urgency on this, which I'm glad. I was glad to hear this news yesterday. Look, another 870,000 people filed for unemployment last week. Jill, that's not good, right? That's a sign that the recovery, to the extent that it's continuing, is slowing. That those numbers are not really they're really bad for
But
6,
that's
7 months
first
into
time
this now.
unemployment.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah, these are people who are just laid off. Pelosi has to deal with a lot of moderates in her caucus who are telling her, they got to do something. People are really struggling. But, I still, for the life of me, I know I've said this before, but I can't figure out why there doesn't seem to be any urgency in the Senate or with the White House on this. Maybe there is now with Mnuchin getting involved on the president's behalf. It doesn't make sense from a political standpoint why you wouldn't want to throw money at the problem when you're facing a tough election. It's not just blue states that are facing danger here, right? The airline industry alone, I had to Google this yesterday because I didn't know. The airline industry alone employs 10 million people in this country. And obviously they're in dire straits, right? Not to mention, of course, what you said about just restaurants and bars and theaters and hotels.
Yeah, I And the president has said that he actually supports the stimulus package. So I'm surprised Republicans have, at least more Republicans haven't gotten on board. Let's talk about the state of coronavirus. With cases once again on the rise in the US, scientists say that the virus may be mutating to become more contagious, but not more lethal. So don't forget, viruses do mutate. That's just kind of how it works. That's what they do. So this wouldn't be irregular, but it could mean that any vaccine is going to have to be tinkered with the same way that the flu shot is changed
Right.
every year. The new spike in infections is mostly in the West, Midwest, as well as Texas. 20 states have seen at least a 5% spike in caseloads over the last 2 weeks.
Meanwhile, overseas, Jill, Israel's nationwide second lockdown starts today ahead of the high. Is Yom Kippur this weekend? Next weekend?
Yeah, it's Sunday night into Monday. So I will
So yeah,
actually be off on Monday.
oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll handle that later.
Sorry to lay that
Sorry.
on you now.
Sorry.
Forgot to mention ahead of time.
No, all good. So Israel's nationwide lockdown starts today. Rio just announcing that the Carnival parade won't happen in February. That's the first time that it has been delayed since 1912. And in Spain's another one to watch. Health officials there warning that Madrid and the surrounding suburbs face, quote, tough weeks ahead. There's a pretty serious virus resurgence there as well as in the UK. So yeah, I mean this bugger, man, it don't go away. It just doesn't. It cannot wait to say goodbye.
I was actually going to use the same word. What?
I just can't wait to say goodbye to this thing. I hate it so much. As much as you could ever hate like a little pathogen, like I just hate it.
I think it's going to be here forever in some capacity, you know?
Some ways, probably. Yeah.
We're just going to have to figure out how to live with it. And hopefully that involves, a combination of a lot of things. All right. Let's talk a little business. Spotify, Epic Games, Match Group, and other companies, they've all come together to form an alliance in order to pressure Apple over its App Store rules. They're calling themselves the Coalition for App Fairness, saying it's open to any developers, especially smaller ones, without the resources to take on Apple by themselves. So this is huge news potentially here.
Yeah, I feel like this is a story that I need to pay more attention to, especially now that it's not just like one or two of these companies saying that Apple is kind of like, has this monopoly control of the app market. This alliance is intended to mobilize this protest against pretty much three things, right? The first thing is the 30% cut that Apple takes from app purchases, which again seems awfully high to me. But again, I don't know, what the standards for these things are, but it seems like a lot. And that's the big thing that a lot of developers and companies are really upset about. There's also this issue of there's just no other way to distribute apps on the iPhone other than through the App Store, right? So you're sort of at the at the mercy of Apple, and also these claims that Apple favors its own services over the competition, which I mean I'm sure it does. Like, why wouldn't it, right? It controls the hardware. So yeah, I mean I think we'll see if this has any real impact, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean I think that if anything, what it's doing is it's making at least customers and users aware of what
Yeah.
goes on, right? So I never
I didn't
really
know that
knew.
30%. Yeah, I didn't know the
I
30%
didn't know
cut
about the
made total
30%. Okay, so Epic Games has a lot of power. Epic Games makes Fortnite. And when you
Right.
think about especially younger kids who are just addicted to this game, so Epic Games basically said, "Look, we're not going to update. We're not providing our new Fortnite update on Apple. So if you're a kid who plays Fortnite and you're waiting for like the next version of this game, which I'm sure is a really big deal, you can't get it." And
Yeah.
Epic Games, I think what they did was smart because they're saying, look, we have all of these in-app purchases. That's a big way that we make our money. We would be able to charge less if Apple didn't take such a big cut. So like this 30% that Apple's taking is hurting the customer because we're passing it
Right.
on to you.
Right.
And I think that should resonate with people. I don't know if it will. And then the other thing, I don't know if you remember that came out back with those tech hearings a couple months ago, is that it came out kind of inadvertently that Apple only takes a 15% cut from Amazon. Okay. So they had
I
sort
don't
of
remember
this
that.
like,
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So Amazon had this, they figured out this deal between Apple and Amazon. And so news organizations, a bunch of news organizations came out and said, well, how do we get that deal? I could only
Right.
take a 15% cut from us. So I think that as we're kind of learning a little bit more about what goes on, I hopefully that'll make a difference. I don't know. We'll see. You know, this nothing may change because Apple is such a big company, and there aren't that many options, right? If your app isn't on iPhones and in that
It's
app
nothing.
store,
Yeah.
you don't have you know, where do you
It's touched.
go?
Right.
Um, but
Well, look,
that's
this
what
is
this is
gonna.
all about.
And Jill, remember, these companies, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, Google, they are in the crosshairs of the government now, right? I don't know if it's going to be soon, but there will be, I think, especially in a Biden administration, a push to regulate them. So I think, Apple, in this case, Apple's going to have to sort of thread a needle here because, they are facing also like these big antitrust investigations, which I believe the federal government is going to announce against Google any day now.
Yeah, and look, Kamala Harris was a lot of businesses sort of breathed a sigh of relief because she has a pretty good relationship with Silicon Valley. You know, she's a senator from California. You know, it's not like if he gone with Elizabeth Warren, for example, that would have created a lot more concern, at least in the business community.
Right, right, right.
But we'll see, right? We'll see what happens with this. Meanwhile, the Pac-12 conference, home of USC, Oregon, and Stanford, they're going to be playing a 7-game football season starting November 6th. So this is the last of the Power Five conferences to commit to a restarted season in the fall, although it will have the latest start and it will have some serious catching up to do if it wants to contend for the national championship. The decision comes just ahead of the SEC's return to the gridiron this weekend and a month before the Big Ten.
Yes, so this is part of the reasons that these conferences are sort of flip flopping or like going back on their postponing the season until January, and now say that they'll restart the season. I mean, the biggest reason is money, right? These football teams just make a ton of money for the schools, but it also has to do with the availability of rapid testing, which is now starting to sort of like make its way through the country. You can now get rapid tests in New York, although it's very hard to get an appointment. Which is great news. I mean, that's great news. But I do think there's valid questions about why, like, the kicker for Stanford has better access to rapid testing than like, your local kindergarten teacher, right? I think that's just I don't think that that's appropriate personally, but.
I mean, look, had we focused on testing from the beginning, the way South Korea did, for
Yeah.
example, where they just were able to roll out this, and in fairness, they were more prepared. They dealt with the SARS epidemic. It was a different situation, but had this country prioritized that, we're 6 months in. Imagine there was rapid testing, to your point, for everybody. Like, look at my daughter, right? She's might miss half
Yeah.
the school year if she has a sniffle. I mean, imagine we could test all these kids every time they went into school. And I'm not just talking obviously about my own, but most classes I know for most schools, at least on Long Island, are kind of like these hybrids, half remote, half in
Hmm.
person. That's an experiment. We don't know what that's going to mean for these kids, and it may have to go all
Yeah.
remote. So, what is it going to mean to basically miss a full year, potentially of in-person learning? Had we prioritized testing, maybe we wouldn't be in this boat.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Okay, Chris Rock has been tapped to host the season premiere of Saturday Night Live next weekend. Megan Thee Stallion is the musical guest, and Rock is starring in the new season of Fargo, which returns Sunday after a 3-year hiatus. I
So
love Chris
SNL,
Rock.
yeah. Oh yeah, I mean Chris Rock is the man, and he was great. I believe that he hosted. Did he host right after Trump won? I don't remember, but he had a very good monologue after the 2016 election on SNL. They're going to try and do 5 straight shows. I think that's the first time in the history of the show they do that. So it's going to go October 3rd right through the election.
Wow.
Yeah, they're going to be they're going to be working hard. Jill, I think there was SNL. Was that the day last week when I overslept when there was the news about Jim Carrey
Yes,
doing
because I read
Biden?
your take about it. Yes.
Yeah, because I was kind of bummed out about that. I mean, I love Jim Carrey, and I'm sure he'll be good. But it just seems like they should be like, you know, like they have cast members. Like shouldn't they be like working within the cast for these. Same with Alec Baldwin and doing Trump. I don't know.
I think Jim Carrey is going to be so good, though. I already kind of, when I see Joe Biden, have started to see Jim Carrey's face. I can't,
That's
the
how you
same
can
way that
tell.
the same way that I almost see Tina Fey and Sarah Palin as the same person. It's like I have started to see when I look at Joe Biden, I see Jim Carrey. I'm super excited. And the thing about SNL, as somebody who I was an NBC page and I used to do tours of the building, and I know all this weird like trivia about NBC and stuff. But the reason that they usually do, I think it's like 3 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Okay. And
Right.
it's because the schedule's insane. I mean, they're putting together basically a 90-minute show of original content in a week. Right. And so they are going to be quite exhausted by the time the election hits if they do go 5 weeks in a row.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be good. It's funny you said that about like seeing Jim Carrey's face, because that's how I feel about when I see George Bush. I just see Will Ferrell. Like when you when the when you have an impression that's that good, where you just sort of like see that person. I mean, that's just a sign of good comedy, I guess, right?
All right, let's do a little Love Hate 8, but this is a special edition. It's because all of our Love Hate 8s this week are reader and listener submissions. So I'm going to start with love, courtesy of Triska. One thing that we love: navigating the self-checkout lane on your own without help from the attendant. It's something I rarely have done, actually. And I feel like they have somebody always waiting. If I think of CVS in particular, I don't think I've ever gone in there and checked out on my own without needing some type of help.
I try and avoid it just out of like principle. It's like I want the full cashier experience. I don't trust myself. I'm gonna accidentally steal something, so I generally stay away from these. But yeah, CVS is the one where it's always some sort of issue. And it's like, if you're gonna have the guy standing there, helping you, why not just have him ring you up? I don't know. But thank you for that, Triska. That one spoke to me too. And one thing we hate, this is from an anonymous listener. When you walk into a store and immediately realize everything is like way out of your price range, so you just kind of like roam around for a minute so you don't offend the salesperson and then walk out. I think we've all been there, right?
Totally. All of a sudden you go in and you're like, oh my God, jackets here
Like,
are
whoa,
$1,000.
yikes.
Okay. Wrong.
But you don't want to be the guy who
store.
just does the U-turn and just walks up. So you're like, oh yeah, okay, all right, maybe. And
Maybe
then you bail out.
Maybe you even throw in like a gratuitous question like, does this come in red? And then it's like, all right, get me the hell out of here.
Exactly.
One thing that we ate, a chicken Caesar wrap. This is courtesy of Linnea. I think that's how you pronounce her name. She writes us the greatest emails from Alaska, actually. But yeah, chicken Caesar, a good one is good.
It is. Chicken Caesars I tend to stay away from because I feel like when it's bad, it's really bad. Like I feel like this is something you get at the airport, right? Like you're like, I'm gonna wait to get to my gate to find something to eat. There's no real restaurants. You're like, I'm just gonna get one of these like pre-wrapped things at the newsstand, and it's always terrible. It's just not worth those odds. So I generally stay away from them. But I appreciate that a good chicken Caesar wrap is good.
Well, at an airport, look, I think always safety is the best policy because you're going to be stuck on a plane. All right, everybody, that is what you need to know for Friday, September 25th.
All right, guys, have a great weekend. Jill, have a nice holiday, and we'll see you on Tuesday. I'll see the rest of you guys on Monday.
I will be very busy atoning. And I'm serious, actually. I take Yom Kippur seriously.
Good, great.